Hello everyone, this is Hank. I'm back for another episode. Today we are going to talk about shoot menu number 8, which is the red menu. There's 3 items on this. Okay, lens electronic MF, AF assist beam firing, MF peaking settings. So before we do this, this will be the last of the installment. We already discussed menu item number 1 through 7. Today we're going to talk about 8. We're going to skip number 9 completely because they deal with videos, and I don't know anything about video, so I'm not going to talk about that because I would be basically, don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, so back to number 8, lens electronic MF. What does that mean? Okay, now there's many lenses nowadays that are not mechanically linked. So when you turn the focus ring, okay, there's no mechanical linkage. Okay, it's purely an electronic pickup. The signals got sent simulate the mechanical movement. Okay, so I haven't tested it with a mechanical linked lens because the ones that I'm using with the RP, they are electronic MF. So I cannot tell, but I suspect that because it is mechanically linked, this thing doesn't apply. You can still manual focus it whenever you turn it. Okay, because it is a physical manifestation of the lens movement. So it will work with a mechanical linked one now. So this option is only for electronic linked. Okay? Alright, with that, when I press the set button, I have submenu with 4 items. Now, the description on these items kind of confusing in itself. And you kind of have to read up on it to understand what it is. So I did a quick check on the manual, and basically the first item, it doesn't really mean anything when you read it, disable after one shot. But, okay, the word one shot kind of give you a clue though. These options only work on the one shot operation. When you're in servo, none of this is going to matter. So you got to be in one shot first in order for this menu to even operate. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, so disable after one shot. What it really means is that, okay, as long as the AF operation is not working after you're done with it, okay, then or before you even start it. So before you press the AF button and afterward you turn the focus ring, it'll manual focus, right? But when you're doing the AF, it's not going to allow you to do MF. That seems to make sense, right? We're going to talk more about that. Okay, so the second one shot enable, what that really means is like, okay, so after I do the autofocus and I'm in focus, now as long as I hold down the shutter button halfway, not the shutter necessarily, but AF button, in case you do like a back button focus, as long as you press it halfway and then you turn the focus ring, this thing will switch over to manual focus with the help of manual focus peaking. So that's the beauty of it. Okay. So the third option is like the second option, except that when you turn the focus ring, the image is going to be automatically magnified by 5 times to help you see better. All right. And the fourth one is that you cannot do manual focus at all while you are in AF mode. Okay, so that is basically the only description in the menu that is kind of self-explanatory there. So we're going to explore that first because it's the most straightforward, okay? I'm going to explore all 4 in detail so that you will be able to tell the real difference between them. Okay, so first we're going to start with this. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to the menu, and I'm going to try to focus. Okay, first I'm going to move this thing to the eye or something. Of course, I don't have AF face tracking, and I will talk more about that. Okay, so now I press the shutter button halfway, and then I focus, right? Okay, so remember, when I'm not using AF, now I can turn the focus ring, and then I should be able to manual focus, correct? No, actually this option here I cannot. So I'm turning the focus ring now, you cannot see it, but nothing happened. So that is kind of expected. Alright, so I cannot use manual focus at all. That makes sense. Okay, go back to menu. Now we are going to explore from the top down. We're going to go to the first option, which is disable after one shot, or when AF operation is not active, then you can do manual focus. Alright, let's see how that works. Wait, did I choose it? Maybe I didn't. Hold on. Yeah, I got to choose it. Okay, choose it. Go back. Okay, so now I press a button, it focus, correct? Now I no longer do the AF, I should be able to do manual focus. Problem is I'm turning the focus ring, nothing happens. Okay, so this is a common question that a lot of people, including myself, were asking. Like, how come there's no difference between number 1 and number 4? They work identical, or doesn't work at all. Manual focus not working. And I'm not using AF feature, how come it doesn't work? Now, the reason being is that when you press a shutter button, I guess that one is activated for a long time, and it doesn't work. So for the camera, it's still active, so therefore manual focus doesn't work. Okay, so when does it work then? For those that do the back button focus, you will see a big difference between number 1 and number 4, and I will demonstrate that for you right now. Okay, in order to do that, I'm going to have to set the camera into the back button mode. I have a separate video to show you how to do it, but I'm going to do it here. Okay, so I press the info button to get to the orange one and choose a CFN3. Okay, in here I choose number 5, just happened to be at number 5 already. Press set. Okay, and then I'm going to change the shutter button from metering and AF start to just metering. So I'm basically disable the AF function out of the shutter button. Okay, choose that. So now I'm a back button focus person now. Okay, so now when I press the shutter button, it only do the metering. You can see all the option disappear, signifying that I'm pressing it. But as you can see, it doesn't focus, because in order to focus, I got to press the AF on button in the back, which is back button focus. Focus, right? Okay, so if I hold it down and I turn the focus ring, nothing happens. Okay, now I let it go. That means I'm not focusing anymore. And I turn the focus button. Guess what happened? I'm actually focusing it manually now. Okay, notice that there's no manual focus picking, because in option number 1 doesn't allow that. Okay, of course, if I want to magnify, I just press the magnify button, then I can manual focus is better. Press it again, I got 10 times, right? Press it again, go back to normal view. Alright, so now you can see a huge difference between menu number 1 and number 4. Okay, press the info button, go back to the red. Go select number 8 again. And go in here. Okay, so now let's talk about one-shot enable. And this is kind of a neat function here. Again, one shot only, right? In servo, none of this is going to work. So now, now I go here, and it doesn't matter whether you use a back button focus or the shutter button for menu number 2. And number 3 for that matter. So I'm not going to change back to the shutter button. I'm going to use back button focus here. So when I press the button, of course I focus, right? So now I keep holding the focus button and I turn the focus ring. Guess what happened? It switched over to manual focus. And you got manual focus picking, right? Because it turns red now. Okay, so that's useful when you want to fine-tune your autofocus. Okay, with this option on. Alright? So, hope that makes sense. Now, here's the third option. Right, so I'm choosing a third option with the magnifying glass. Okay, so you see, again, I'm doing back button focus. It doesn't matter, the front button focus should work too. Okay, while I'm holding it down, turning the focus ring, look at what happened, because the view is automatically get zoomed to 5x so that I can manual focus better. I let go of the button and go back to that. Okay, so this feature is really, really helpful when you want really precise focus. It does it automatically. So I would recommend having this mode turned on. Okay, now there's a big caveat on this. Some of you, while you're trying this, you probably will see that the magnifying option doesn't work. And what I want you to pay attention to is whether or not you have face tracking on or not. Because if you have face tracking on, the magnifying auto magnify is not going to work. I'm going to demonstrate that. Okay, so now I'm using face tracking, right? So now I'm going to try to use the ring. Guess what happened? It doesn't auto magnify. Okay, the reason is because in manual, in the face tracking mode, it doesn't work. So any other mode outside of the face tracking is going to work just fine. See, I'm going to change it to some other mode. Let's say this mode, spot. Okay, or did I have spot before? Yeah, probably. So maybe change to something else like this. Right? So now I focus. And it auto magnify. Alright, so that's a catcher. Face tracking doesn't work. Okay, the fourth item we talk about. So, to summarize, if you're using a shutter button for focus, okay, option number 1 and number 4 works identically, so there's no difference. So a lot of people are saying that, hey, I don't see a difference, and that's the reason why it doesn't make any difference, because the camera assumed that the AF operation is not complete, so it doesn't do the manual focus for you. So, and also in the magnifying, the third option, if you have face tracking turned on, the magnifying part doesn't work. So keep that in mind. All right. With that, let's talk about AF assist beam firing. I'm not going to give you such a detailed demonstration for a couple of reasons. Number one reason is that it just takes too long. Number two reason is that right now my room is too bright, and that feature doesn't turn on anyway. It turns on only when it thinks that it needs it, which is really dark. And so, but anyway, take my word for it. When you have it enabled, what it means is like, okay, the RP has a little orange light in the front. And when it's dark enough that the camera thinks that it needs help focusing, it'll turn on and kind of flash an orange light at the model. Okay, sometimes the models get scared or get bothered by it, so some photographer turn it off. Okay, now for those photographer, the second option will allow that. Okay, so you just choose disable, and then that thing doesn't go on off anymore. Okay, simple. Now this option here, like when you do that, back to this one. When you enable it and you have a flash, an external flash mounted, okay, the camera is going to try to use the flash, unless you go into the flash option and you turn off that feature. Then the camera will use its own LED to do it, right? Otherwise, it's got to use the flash, because the flash AF assist is stronger than the camera, right? So when you disable everything. Now the LED AF assist beam only is basically telling the camera to use its own LED. All right? Unless certain kind of flash supposedly does have its own LED. And in that case, the camera will use the flash LED, but most flash that I own, actually all of the flash that I own, don't have LED AF assist. So if I choose this one, it's not going to use the flash. It's going to use the camera for it. So it's a wide range of option available to you. You just take your pick, right? For this, I recommend just turn it on. If the camera activated, that means you really need it. Okay, MF peaking. Okay, this one, as you can see in the previous demonstration, when I do the manual focus, it turns red. The areas that turn red is signify in focus. And the reason that it turns red is because the default color is red. Okay, you have an option of choosing yellow, blue. It depends on what kind of picture you take. If the picture have a lot of red in it, obviously you want to choose a different color. Otherwise you cannot tell. Similarly, if the picture got a lot of yellow in it, don't choose yellow. If it has a lot of blue in it, don't choose blue. So it allows you to vary the color so that you can see it. In my experience, I find red is the easiest to spot, so I just use the default red. But it's up to you. That is available to you. Okay, the level supposedly have to do with the sensitivity of the picking. Even though, to be frank, I play with the two mode. I never could tell the difference anyway. Just to be safe, leave it at high, which is the default. And you have a reason to turn it on or off, but I highly recommend that you leave it on all the time, because when you're not using MF, no harm is done. But when you switch over to MF, this thing is going to get activated. So just leave it on all the time, level high, color red, you'll be okay. Alright, with that we have finished the whole red menu item series, and I would like to thank you very much for it. Hopefully we'll see you in another video. I haven't decided on what we're going to talk about. Probably we'll have a summary of all of my recommendations for all of the red items compiled into one video for your convenience. Thank you very much. We'll see you later.